The greatest power you possess isn't what you know, it's what you strategically choose not to reveal. In a world obsessed with transparency, where people broadcast their every thought and feeling, true wisdom often lies in what remains unsaid. The most powerful people throughout history understood something fundamental about success. It's not just about what you share, but what you protect. I've traveled to over 70 countries. I've advised presidents and CEOs. I've studied the habits of the world's most effective leaders, and I've discovered a pattern that separates those who merely dream from those who truly achieve. The successful protect certain information with unwavering discipline. Think about the most influential person you know personally. Now consider what made them influential. Was it their tendency to tell everyone everything? Or was it their careful, strategic approach to information? You see, in today's hyper-connected world, everyone is shouting, everyone is sharing, everyone is exposing. But the truly wise understand that power often resides in silence. They recognize that not everything that can be said should be said. Tonight, I want to reveal 5 critical things that smart, successful people never share indiscriminately. These 5 principles of strategic silence have the power to transform your effectiveness, protect your purpose, and accelerate your progress toward your destiny. This message isn't about deception or manipulation. It's about wisdom. It's about understanding that premature transparency often leads to aborted destiny. It's about recognizing that your purpose deserves protection. Are you ready to discover the power of strategic silence? Are you prepared to learn why the wisest among us guard certain information with unwavering discipline? Then lean forward, because what I'm about to share could revolutionize your approach to success. The first thing smart people never broadly share is their current personal struggles. Now let me be clear about something important. I'm not saying you should never discuss your challenges. I'm saying you must be extraordinarily selective about where, when, and with whom you share them. Every great leader faces moments of doubt, periods of difficulty, seasons of tremendous challenge. But there's a fundamental difference between strategic vulnerability and careless exposure. When you broadcast your current struggles to everyone within earshot, several damaging things happen simultaneously. First, you plant negative perceptions in the minds of people who might otherwise support your vision. Second, you invite uninformed advice from people who don't understand the full context of your situation. Third, and perhaps most dangerously, you often solidify problems that were still in a fluid state. I remember consulting with a promising entrepreneur who was facing a cash flow crisis in his new business. In a moment of anxiety, he posted about his financial troubles on social media, seeking support and advice. Within days, 3 potential investors who had been quietly considering backing his company withdrew their interest. His vendors started demanding payment terms. His competitors began spreading rumors about his company's imminent collapse. What was once a manageable, temporary challenge became an existential threat. All because he shared his struggle in the wrong environment with the wrong people at the wrong time. Contrast this with another entrepreneur I mentored who faced an even more severe crisis. Her company was 3 weeks from bankruptcy, but instead of broadcasting her troubles, she carefully selected 3 advisors with relevant experience. She maintained absolute confidence in her public communication. She projected stability while privately working on solutions. Within 2 months, she had secured new financing, restructured operations, and turned the company toward profitability, all without ever creating a public perception of instability. You see, wise people understand that not everyone deserves access to your struggles. Not everyone has earned the right to hear about your difficulties. Not everyone has the capacity to help rather than harm. This doesn't mean you suffer in silence. It means you choose your confidants with strategic precision. You share struggles only in environments conducive to solutions. You protect vulnerable information until it can be presented alongside your victory. Even in your personal life, this principle applies powerfully. When you and your spouse have a disagreement, broadcasting it to friends, family, and social media only complicates resolution. When you're struggling with a health challenge, sharing it prematurely can create lasting perceptions that outlive the actual problem. Consider this wisdom. People remember the struggle long after you've forgotten the victory. So ask yourself, who has earned the right to hear about my current challenges? Who has the wisdom to provide valuable counsel? Who has proven they can hold sacred what I share in confidence? The answer to these questions reveals your appropriate circle of disclosure. Everyone else receives your vision, your confidence, your strength, not because you're being deceptive, but because you're being strategically protective of your purpose and path. Remember, your current struggle is not your permanent identity. Protect the narrative of your life by sharing struggles selectively, strategically, and only in environments where such sharing serves your greater purpose. The second thing smart people never indiscriminately share is detailed information about their wealth and finances. In a culture obsessed with displays of prosperity, this principle might seem counterintuitive. After all, don't we see successful people flaunting their wealth on social media every day? Yes. And those displays often reveal not success but insecurity. Truly wealthy people, those with generational stability, those with true financial independence, rarely discuss specific numbers. They don't announce their income, broadcast their investments, or detail their assets publicly. There's profound wisdom in this approach. When you openly share your financial details, you invite unnecessary complications into your life. You attract attention that rarely serves your greater purpose. You create expectations that can limit your freedom of action. Consider the historical example of Rose Blumkin, who built Nebraska Furniture Mart from nothing into a business Warren Buffett eventually purchased for millions. Mrs. B, as she was known, lived modestly, worked diligently, and never flaunted her growing wealth. When she sold her business to Buffett in her 90s, many who had known her for decades were shocked to discover she had built such a valuable enterprise. Her financial privacy wasn't about deception. It was about focusing attention on her work rather than her wealth. Financial privacy serves several strategic purposes. First, it prevents people from forming relationships with you based primarily on your resources. Second, it gives you significant advantages in negotiations when others don't know your true position. Third, it protects you from becoming a target for endless requests, schemes, and even criminal attention. I've observed something fascinating about wealth. Those who talk about it the most often have the least, while those who have the most often say the least. This doesn't mean you should be dishonest. It means you should recognize that your specific financial details are privileged information that should be shared only with appropriate professionals, partners, and in some cases family members who need to know for practical purposes. Even within families, wise people are careful about creating unnecessary financial transparency. Children who grow up with too much information about family wealth often develop distorted relationships with money and work. Relatives who know too much about your resources often form expectations about what you should do with those resources. In today's digital age, financial privacy has become both more important and more difficult to maintain. Social media encourages constant status displays. Data brokers collect and sell your financial information Without conscious effort, your financial details can become surprisingly public. Develop the discipline of financial discretion. When asked directly about money matters by those without a need to know, learn to respond with warmth but without specifics. We're blessed, or we have what we need, redirects conversations without being evasive. Remember, financial success leaves clues without requiring announcement. Your work ethic, your consistency, your generosity, your integrity, these speak more authentically about your prosperity than any disclosure of numbers ever could. The third thing smart people protect fiercely is information about their unfinished plans and goals. There's something psychologically powerful about keeping your plans private until they're ready for execution. When you prematurely announce your intentions, several undermining forces immediately activate. First, you experience what psychologists call social reality effect, the false sense of accomplishment that comes from merely talking about your plans. Research has consistently shown that discussing your goals triggers the same psychological pleasure as actually achieving them, which can significantly reduce your motivation to do the hard work necessary for accomplishment. Second, you invite the unnecessary opinions of people who don't have context for your vision. Every significant idea sounds impossible before it's implemented. Every innovation faces skepticism before it's proven. When you expose embryonic plans to general scrutiny, you subject fragile potential to harsh judgment before it has developed protective strength. Consider the development of the first iPhone. Steve Jobs enforced almost unimaginable secrecy around the project. Different teams worked on different components without knowing the full vision. Information was strictly compartmentalized. This wasn't mere paranoia, it was strategic protection of an idea. Revolutionary enough to change the world, but vulnerable enough to be killed by premature exposure. I've mentored countless entrepreneurs, leaders, and visionaries over the decades. I've observed a direct correlation between their ability to maintain strategic silence about unfinished plans and their rate of successful implementation. This principle extends beyond business into every arena of life. When you're considering a career change, a relocation, a significant relationship decision, or any major life transition, there's wisdom in keeping those plans contained until they're solidified. Not because you fear input, but because you understand the power of protected incubation. Identify the small circle of trusted advisors who have earned the right to speak into your unfinished plans. Look for people with relevant expertise, proven wisdom, and genuine commitment to your success. Share your developing vision with this carefully selected group, integrate their valuable feedback, and continue protecting the plan from general exposure. One practical approach is to develop what I call your council of construction and your council of criticism. Your council of construction consists of the few trusted individuals who help build and strengthen your plans before implementation. Your council of criticism includes those who will help refine your plans through challenging questions and alternative perspectives. The key distinction: construction comes before criticism, and both happen before general announcement. When is the right time to share your plans more broadly? When they've developed to the point where external opinion can no longer fundamentally derail them. When you've moved from concept to committed action. When you've addressed the major vulnerabilities and are ready for implementation. Remember, the world is full of dream killers, not because people are malicious, but because they're often limited by their own experiences and fears. Protect your dreams in their vulnerable stages by practicing strategic silence about your unfinished plan. The fourth area smart people protect with unwavering discipline is information about family conflicts and private matters. In an age where many people treat social media as a public diary, broadcasting every disagreement and difficulty, this principle has become increasingly countercultural, yet it remains essential for both personal dignity and relationship health. When you publicly share private family conflicts, you create several damaging outcomes. First, you make reconciliation more difficult by involving uninvolved parties. Second, you create permanent records of temporary problems. Third, you damage the dignity not just of those involved, but of your family as a whole. I've counseled countless families through serious conflicts, from marital struggles to parent-child tensions to extended family disagreements. I've observed a clear pattern. Those who manage these challenges with appropriate privacy almost always reach better resolutions than those who broadcast their difficulties. This doesn't mean you never seek help. It means you carefully select appropriate sources of support, professional counselors, trusted mentors, or close friends with demonstrated wisdom and discretion. The key is understanding the difference between seeking help and simply venting publicly. Consider how former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell handled family matters throughout his high-profile career. Despite intense public scrutiny, he maintained strict boundaries around his family's private life. When his son Michael faced criticism during his tenure as FCC chairman, Powell refused to discuss these matters in interviews, maintaining that family matters remain private regardless of public interest. This wasn't about hiding problems, but about protecting the sacred space where those problems could be addressed constructively. In today's digital environment, this principle requires intentional discipline. Before sharing any family information, ask yourself, does broadcasting this serve healing or merely venting? Am I seeking solutions or simply validation? Would I want this permanent digital record to exist years from now? Creating a culture of privacy within your family provides several benefits. It builds trust among family members, knowing their personal matters won't become public without consent. It teaches children the value of appropriate boundaries. It preserves dignity during inevitable difficult seasons. And it keeps family challenges in proper perspective, preventing temporary difficulties from becoming defining narratives. Remember, the strongest families aren't those without conflicts. They're those who handle conflicts with wisdom, respect, and appropriate privacy. Your family deserves the dignity of addressing its challenges without the complications of public exposure. The fifth thing smart people guard carefully is information about their personal insecurities and inner doubts. To be clear, this isn't about pretending to be perfect or denying human vulnerability. Rather, it's about understanding the strategic importance of managing how and where you express your deepest insecurities. Every successful person experiences moments of doubt. Every leader questions their capacity. Every achiever wonders if they're adequate for their challenges. This is normal, natural, and universal to the human experience. The difference is not in having these feelings, but in how they are processed and expressed. When you habitually verbalize your insecurities to everyone around you, you create several undermining dynamics. First, you train your brain to strengthen these negative self-perceptions through repetition. Second, you invite others to view you through the lens of your self-doubt rather than your potential. Third, you often unconsciously seek validation rather than growth. Consider how Nelson Mandela handled the profound personal doubts he must have experienced during his 27 years of imprisonment. In his autobiography, he acknowledges experiencing fear and uncertainty, but he also describes his disciplined practice of never displaying weakness to his guards or fellow prisoners when it might undermine collective courage. This wasn't deception, it was strategic emotional management in service of a greater purpose. True emotional intelligence includes understanding which environments are appropriate for expressing different types of vulnerability, A private journal, a trusted mentor, a professional counselor, or a small circle of proven friends may all represent appropriate spaces for processing insecurities. General social settings, professional environments, or public platforms rarely do. I've observed that the most effective leaders develop what I call directed vulnerability. The ability to strategically share certain insecurities in specific contexts for specific purposes while maintaining broader emotional stability in their general presentation. This isn't about creating a false front, but about understanding the purpose and impact of different types of emotional expression. Many of history's most impactful individuals experienced profound inner doubts. Abraham Lincoln battled depression. Martin Luther King Jr. expressed deep fears to his closest confidants. Mother Teresa's private journals revealed spiritual struggles invisible in her public work. What united these transformative figures was not the absence of doubt, but the disciplined, purposeful management of how those doubts were expressed. When you feel compelled to share insecurities, ask yourself, what is my purpose in expressing this? Am I seeking growth or merely reassurance? Is this the right environment for this level of vulnerability? Does this expression serve my greater purpose? Remember, strategic emotional management isn't about suppression, it's about channeling. The energy of your insecurities, properly directed, becomes the fuel for your greatest achievements rather than the brake on your forward progress. Having explored these 5 areas of strategic silence, personal struggles, financial details, unfinished plans, family matters, and personal insecurities, I want to address the deeper principle that unites them all. The wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Strategic silence serves several essential purposes beyond information protection. First, it creates space for discernment, the ability to sense which information actually matters and which merely distracts. Second, it allows you to listen more deeply to others, gathering valuable intelligence rather than merely waiting for your turn to speak. Third, it gives you the advantage of responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. The connection between listening and leadership cannot be overstated. The best leaders listen far more than they speak. They absorb information, process implications, consider responses, and only then communicate with precision and purpose. Their words carry weight precisely because they are not wasted on continuous expression. This discipline of information control becomes increasingly valuable as you advance in influence and impact. The higher you rise, the more consequential your words become, and the more important it becomes to deploy them strategically rather than casually. There's also a significant competitive advantage in being underestimated due to strategic silence. When others don't fully know your capabilities, your knowledge, or your resources, you maintain the element of surprise. Your competitors prepare for what they perceive rather than what you actually possess. Perhaps most importantly, the practice of strategic silence builds character. It develops patience. It cultivates wisdom. It strengthens self-control. These qualities, patience, wisdom, self-control, form the foundation for lasting success in every arena of life. Developing this discipline requires intentional practice. Begin by implementing strategic pauses in conversation, moments where you deliberately withhold immediate response to consider optimal replies. Practice journaling private thoughts rather than immediately sharing them. Experiment with delaying your public commentary on situations still developing. As you develop this discipline, you'll discover something remarkable. Your words gain tremendous power precisely because you deploy them with strategic intention rather than impulsive frequency. The principles we've discussed tonight aren't about creating false impressions. They're not about manipulation or deception. They're about wisdom, the deep understanding that not all information deserves equal treatment, that not all audiences deserve equal access, that not all moments deserve equal disclosure. This strategic approach to information management has transformed the effectiveness of leaders in every field throughout history, from diplomacy to business, from education to healthcare, from community leadership to family life. The disciplined protection of certain information represents a consistent pattern among those who achieve lasting impact. The principles we've discussed tonight aren't about creating false impressions. They're not about manipulation or deception. They're about wisdom. The deep understanding that not all information deserves equal treatment, that not all audiences deserve equal access, that not all moments deserve equal disclosure. This strategic approach to information management has transformed the effectiveness of leaders in every field throughout history, from diplomacy to business, from education to healthcare, from community leadership to family life. The disciplined protection of certain information represents a consistent pattern among those who achieve lasting impact. I challenge you tonight to examine your own information management. Where have you been casually transparent when strategic silence would better serve your purpose? Where have you sought validation through disclosure rather than advancement through discretion? Where have you undermined your own effectiveness through premature sharing? Imagine how your relationships might strengthen if you protected family matters with greater care. Consider how your financial position might improve if you managed money details with greater discretion. Think about how your plans might advance more effectively if you protected them during their vulnerable development phases. The path to extraordinary impact often runs through the discipline of strategic silence, not silence born of fear, but silence born of wisdom, not silence that hides truth, but silence that protects purpose. As you leave tonight, I urge you to embrace this counterintuitive truth. In a world where everyone is talking, your strategic silence becomes your competitive advantage. In an environment where information constantly flows, your disciplined management of crucial details becomes your path to uncommon effectiveness. The most powerful people I've ever encountered aren't those who constantly broadcast their knowledge. They're those who strategically deploy it. They understand when to speak and when to listen, when to reveal and when to conceal, when to express and when to observe. This wisdom lies available to anyone with the discipline to develop it. It doesn't require special talent, unique opportunity, or privileged position. It simply requires the courage to resist our culture's demand for constant expression and the strength to practice strategic silence in service of your greater purpose. Remember, your words create your world. Deploy them with wisdom, with intention, with strategic precision. In doing so, you'll discover the extraordinary power of knowing not just what to say, but what never to share. I challenge you tonight to examine your own information management. Where have you been casually transparent when strategic silence would better serve your purpose? Where have you sought validation through disclosure rather than advancement through discretion? Where have you undermined your own effectiveness through premature sharing? The path to extraordinary impact often runs through the discipline of strategic silence. Not silence born of fear, but silence born of wisdom. Not silence that hides truth, but silence that protects purpose. As you leave tonight, I urge you to embrace this counterintuitive truth. In a world where everyone is talking, your strategic silence becomes your competitive advantage. In an environment where information constantly flows, your disciplined management of crucial details becomes your path to uncommon effectiveness. Remember, your words create your world. Deploy them with wisdom, with intention, with strategic precision. In doing so, you'll discover the extraordinary power of knowing not just what to say, but what never to share.